Hey, what's up folks? This is Keith and you're watching Barber's Auto Help. Thank you so much for watching. Well, my brakes have gone metal to metal. So in this video, I'm going to give you an example of what it sounds like when your brakes go metal to metal. And also in this video, I'm going to show you what happened to my brakes and why my brakes are metal to metal. And then we're going to talk about why it's so very important that you don't let things like this go. If you start to hear noises like this or any kind of noise coming from the brakes, you really want to get it checked out to make sure that you're safe. And if you do have a problem, you need to get it fixed immediately. And we'll go over why that's important. So let's go ahead and get into this. I'm going to give you an example of that sound, and then we'll go into the other. All right, let's see if we can get that sound to happen. All right, I'm about to hit the brakes. Metal to metal. That's quite nasty. All right, let's get back to the shop and see what we got. All right, so just for some clarification, when I say my brakes have gone metal to metal, what I'm talking about is the friction material on the brake pad has actually worn out so much that there is no more friction material left on it. This one's a good pad right here, but you can see that the other one is actually wore slap out to where there's hardly any friction material. Actually, there's no friction material right here. It's just basically backing plate that is coming into contact with the metal rotor. So you have a metal backing plate that is scrubbing against a metal rotor. Instead of a pad on rotor, you have a backing plate on rotor, metal to metal. Now on my vehicle here, the reason that the inboard pad wore out prematurely is because my caliper slide is totally locked up. You can see I'm trying to move that caliper back and forth on that slide there, and it's just not wanting to move. It's actually stuck in that position. It should go up and down like this on that particular slide right there. You got the bolt that holds it on right there. Once that bolt's removed, you should be able to slide this up and then slide it right back off of that slide there. And you just can't do that because it's locked up. Now, my brakes went quote unquote metal to metal because of a brake issue or because of a problem that I have with this particular caliper here. However, you can go metal to metal on your brakes regardless, just by regular wear and tear. So you don't necessarily have to have another underlying issue whenever you go metal to metal with your brakes. It could just be because you may have neglected having the brakes inspected regularly and not had the chance to catch this particular problem before it actually happens. But of course, going over the full spectrum of causes of brakes going metal to metal is not really what this video is designed to do. I do have some other videos that are very helpful. I'll post a link to those down in the description of this video, and that can give you more ideas as to what can cause your brakes to lock up or drag or cause premature wear and tear. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty as to why it's so very important to pay attention to this and to get your brakes checked out whenever you hear this noise, or check them out yourself. Well, as you know, I'm assuming that you know, the way that your brakes operate, of course, is through hydraulic pressure. You press the brake pedal, that pushes a rod into the back of the brake master cylinder, and then that creates hydraulic pressure inside the master cylinder, and that pressure is pushed out through the lines, through your hydraulic control unit, and then out to your different wheels. And when they get to the wheel, they get to what's called the brake caliper. And on the brake caliper, you have a piston. Behind the piston, you have a hydraulic chamber. That piston, of course, is sealed, and when that pressure gets to the back side of that piston in that hydraulic chamber, it pushes the piston out, and that causes the caliper to squeeze the two brake pads on either side of the rotor into the rotor, causing your rotors to slow down. It creates a little friction there, and it eventually slows down the rotational movement of that rotor. It's much like your bicycle brakes. You pull the brake lever on the handlebar, the cable pulls the brakes into the actual wheel of the bike, and those rubber pads rub up against that and slow down the wheel. Very similar, almost exactly the same, except this is hydraulic pressure, and that's done with a mechanical cable. Now, when your brakes go metal to metal, you don't have any friction material left on this pad here. So like on your bicycle, you got that rubber pad, and that rubber grips that wheel and slows it down, gets it hot, creates friction, slows down the rotational movement of that wheel. Well, when you don't have any friction material on this pad here, it's like you don't have a rubber brake pad anymore. This is semi-metallic or organic material or ceramic material. But there's a certain friction coefficient that this material has, and it's designed to create friction between it and the rotor and slow down that rotor. If you ain't got that anymore, you're not going to have the correct friction coefficient to slow down the rotational movement of that rotor. In an extreme case, what can happen is this pad wears down even more into the backing plate here of the brake pad. The backing plate can get much more thin, and it can actually slide out of the caliper bracket. There's a little distance between the caliper bracket and the rotor, and if this thing becomes too thin, it can slide right in between there and fall right out. Then what's happening is either the caliper is rubbing up against the rotor, or the piston is rubbing up against the rotor, depending upon if the outboard pad falls out or the inboard pad falls out. And sometimes you can have both. Now, a few cases, well, one case anyway, and I've seen everything that I'm about to explain to you. I've actually seen this in real life. This happens a lot more than I would like to admit. Pad falls out, caliper piston starts rubbing up against the rotor here. The caliper piston comes out so far that it hyperextends, creates a fluid leak between the piston and the fluid chamber, and hydraulic pressure is lost, and you don't hardly have any brake pedal, and the vehicle hardly wants to stop. I've also seen where the pads have eaten into the rotors so badly that part of the rotor or the whole disc of the rotor is completely gone. It's just a little hub right here, and there's no disc around the outside of it for any brake pad or caliper or anything to grab onto to stop the vehicle. So in extreme cases, that can happen, and it does happen. I'm just dumbfounded as to how a lot of people that have come into the shop have let this particular problem go for such a long time without realizing that there's an issue. Because I mean, it's an awful noise that it makes. You got to go for some time hearing that noise before it actually gets to where it's bad enough for one of those things to happen. Now, don't misunderstand me. When your brakes go metal to metal, bad from the get-go. I'm not in any way saying that you can drive your car for an extended period of time with grinding. You need to get it fixed immediately. If you're hearing grinding or any kind of brake noise, you need to know what's going on, and you need to address it ASAP. But people have driven their vehicles like that for a very long time. I don't know if their radio's up too loud, or if they just put their head in the sand and they don't want to face the music, that they actually have a problem. I'm not sure what the issue is, but this stuff happens a lot, and it doesn't need to happen a lot because it's unsafe. So folks, that is it for this video. I sincerely hope that this helped somebody. If you have any questions, please comment down below. Also, please read the entire description down below this video before you apply any of this knowledge. There may be some things I need to clarify. That's where I do that. And also, please read the disclaimer at the very end of it. Thank you again. Please like and subscribe. Have a good one.